He walked into the bar wearing a raincoat. 6 German officers sat inside. They were cursing America, mocking the Marines. He ordered a drink, waited for his moment. Then he dropped the raincoat. Underneath it was a full U.S. Marine Corps uniform. He leveled 2 pistols at the Germans and ordered them to toast the President of the United States in the middle of Nazi-occupied France. This is the story of the most decorated OS operative in World War II. America's real-life James Bond. July 5, 1913, New York City. Peter Julian Ortiz was born to a French-Spanish father and an American mother. Tall, dark-haired, handsome. The kind of man who walked into a room and owned it. His family moved to France when he was a child. By the time he was a teenager, Peter spoke 10 languages: French, English, German, Italian, Arabic, and 5 more. In 1932, at age 19, Peter was studying at the University of Grenoble. A comfortable, well-connected student life. Then he walked into a recruiting office and enlisted in the French Foreign Legion. Not because he had to, because he wanted to. For 5 years, Peter served in the Legion. North Africa, Morocco, Algeria. He fought in mountain campaigns against indigenous rebels. He was wounded in action, decorated for bravery. He rose to the rank of acting lieutenant. In 1937, he left the Legion and came to Hollywood. With his looks, his languages, and his stories, he became a technical advisor on war films. He met directors, actors, studio executives. Peter Ortiz was living the perfect life. But Europe was burning. In 1939, Germany invaded France. Peter left Hollywood and sailed back to Europe. He rejoined the French army. He fought in the Battle of France in 1940. He was shot in the hip during the retreat, captured by the Germans. For 15 months, Peter was held in German POW camps. Germany, Austria, Poland. He attempted to escape 5 times. The 5th time he succeeded. October 1941. Using his German and his French, he bluffed his way through checkpoints across occupied Europe. He crossed the border into neutral Spain, made his way to Portugal, then to the United States. American intelligence officers debriefed him for days. They'd never met anyone like him. A man who spoke 10 languages, who'd served in 3 armies, who'd been shot, captured, and escaped, and was asking for another assignment. June 1942. Peter Ortiz walked into a Marine Corps recruiting station. "Marines are like legionnaires," he said. That's where I belong. He was commissioned directly as a second lieutenant. But within months, the OSS came calling. The Office of Strategic Services, America's new spy agency. General Wild Bill Donovan ran it. He famously wanted agents who were Ph.D.S. who could win a bar fight. Peter Ortiz was exactly that. December 1942. Peter was sent to North Africa undercover as an assistant naval attaché. His real mission: organize Arab tribesmen to gather intelligence behind German lines in Tunisia. On patrol one night, Peter's team ran into a German patrol. Gunfire erupted in the darkness. A bullet shattered Peter's right hand. He rolled onto his other side, and with his left hand threw grenades until the Germans broke off. His men dragged him to safety. Peter earned his first Purple Heart. Months of recovery in hospitals in Algiers and Washington. Then he was back in London, preparing for his next mission. The most dangerous one yet. January 6, 1944, midnight. A British RAF bomber flew over the mountains of southeastern France. 3 men stood at the jump door. Peter Ortiz, a British officer, a French radio operator. They jumped into darkness. Operation Union had begun. Their mission was to find the French resistance in the Vercors region, assess their strength, arm them, prepare them for D-Day. They jumped in civilian clothes. If caught by the Germans, they could be shot as spies. No trial, no mercy. But Peter had brought his Marine Corps uniform in his suitcase. He wasn't going to hide who he was. Once in the mountains with the Maquis resistance fighters, he changed into his uniform. The first Allied officer to appear in uniform in France since the fall in 1940. When French civilians saw the American uniform, they wept. They knew America had come. For 5 months, Peter lived in the mountains, organizing resistance cells, directing supply drops, leading sabotage raids on German positions. He stole a Gestapo vehicle and drove 4 downed RAF pilots through Vichy, France, to the Spanish border. Then turned around and went back. One night, he learned that German officers from the division hunting him were at a local bar. They were drunk and insulting Americans, mocking the Marines. Peter listened and made a decision. He went to his room, put on his Marine uniform, pulled on his raincoat, walked back into the bar. He ordered a drink, calmly, Then he shrugged off the raincoat. The German stared at the Marine uniform. Peter drew 2 pistols. "We've been drinking toast to Hitler all night," he said. "Now you'll drink a toast to the President of the United States." The Germans raised their glasses, muttered the words. Peter wasn't satisfied. "And to the United States Marine Corps." The Germans drank again. Peter backed out the door into the night and disappeared into the mountains. He later said he didn't kill them. He wanted them to live and spread the story. And they did. May 1944, Peter was airlifted back to England. He received the Navy Cross, was promoted to major, and immediately started planning his return. August 1st, 1944. A B-17 Flying Fortress flew over the mountains of France. 8 men jumped. Operation Union 2. Peter commanded 5 Marine NCOs, an Army Air Force captain, and a Free French officer. 1 Marine's parachute failed to open. He died on impact, but the rest landed safely. And within days, they were in heavy combat. The Germans had tracked the team's arrival. A massive force surrounded their position. Artillery, machine guns, hundreds of soldiers. The Germans drove Peter's team into a steep canyon. Walls of rock on 3 sides, Germans on the 4th. They were surrounded, trapped. But Peter noticed something. The German commander wasn't shelling them. He wanted prisoners, not corpses. And the nearest French village was directly behind the German lines. If they fought their way out, the Germans would massacre the civilians. In retaliation, Peter made a decision that no military manual could ever teach. He would surrender. Not to save himself, but to save the French village behind the German lines. He ordered every man to destroy their weapons and codes. Then he put on his full Marine dress uniform. Medals, rank insignia, the works, and walked out with his hands up. The German commander was furious. He'd expected to capture a band of dirty guerrillas. Instead, he faced a full U.S. Marine officer in perfect dress uniform. "We are uniformed military personnel," Peter told him. "You will treat us as prisoners of war under the Geneva Convention." And the village was spared. The Germans shipped Peter and his men to a POW camp near Bremen. Once inside, Peter declared himself senior American officer. The British camp commander told him there would be no escape attempts. Peter told him that didn't apply to Americans. December 18, 1944. Peter and a Navy lieutenant spent over an hour cutting through wire fences in the dark. They made it into the open field beyond the camp. Then a guard patrol appeared. Searchlights lit up the field. They were recaptured, roughed up, thrown into solitary, but Peter immediately started planning his next attempt. April 10th, 1945. With Allied forces advancing rapidly into Germany, the Germans ordered the prisoners to move. Chaos erupted as men scrambled to prepare. In the confusion, Peter slipped away with 2 Americans and a British officer. They hid in the woods for 10 days, surviving on whatever they could find. Finally, nearly starving, they returned to the abandoned camp to look for food. The remaining German guards had given up. The war in Europe was over. Peter Ortiz was free. He immediately asked his liberating officers if he could join their unit and keep fighting Germans. The request was denied. He was debriefed, decorated, and sent home. At his debriefing, the Navy commander presented Peter with his 2nd Navy Cross. Peter Ortiz became the most decorated member of the Office of Strategic Services. 2 Navy Crosses, 5 Croix de Guerre from France, the Order of the British Empire, decorations from 3 different countries. One of the most decorated Marines of World War II. After the war, Peter returned to Hollywood. He met director John Ford. Ford immediately cast him in films alongside John Wayne, because John Ford said, "If you want someone who actually lives like the movies, hire Peter Ortiz." He appeared in several westerns and war films, always playing the tough, battle-hardened soldier, which required absolutely no acting. In southeastern France, the small town of Centrin still honors the Marine who surrendered to save their village. A plaque bears his name in the mayor's office. The town square is named after him. Peter Ortiz died on January 16, 1988. He was 74 years old. He was buried at Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery in San Diego, California. This is what heroism looks like. Not the kind that follows orders, but the kind that writes its own rules. Peter Ortiz could have been comfortable. He could have stayed in Hollywood. Instead, he joined 3 armies, parachuted behind enemy lines twice, held German officers at gunpoint in their own bar, surrendered to protect a French village he'd never been to, escaped captivity twice, and asked for more combat after liberation. Ian Fleming based James Bond on men he met during the war. Men like Peter Ortiz. But unlike Bond, Peter Ortiz was real. If you want to hear more stories of forgotten American heroes, hit subscribe. These men deserve to be remembered.